In this video tutorial, I am going to show you how to set up and configure an object counter. Object counters count triggers that have been generated by rules. Any combination of detection zones or lines can be assigned to a counter. To create a counter, right-click on the tracking display and select Counter and then click on Add Counter. Like zones and lines, counters also have property information shown in the Properties Inspector. If, for example, it is required to count the number of vehicles entering and exiting the parking garage, as shown on the left, then a zone or line must be configured to raise an alarm every time a vehicle is present. Here is an example of a red zone with the presence rule. Note that the rule has not been applied yet. Let's click back on the counter and change the default name to presence. The zone can be assigned to the counter by selecting any one of the three options, which are Increment, Decrement, and Occupancy. Let's click on Increment by selecting the Inc 0 tick box, and then click the down arrow under the Value tab and select the red zone with the Object Presence rule and click Apply. When an object trail crosses the detection zone, it will trigger the rule and raise an alarm. This is then recorded in the event history, like so. Also, because we connected the counter to the red zone events, the counter counts the vehicles that are present. To reset the counter, click on the counter, right-click and select Counter and choose Reset Counter. To remove the counter, click on the counter, right-click and select Counter and remove Counter. Video analytics can do very well in complex scenarios. For example, if I wanted to know the net number of vehicles in this parking garage, which has its entrance at the left-hand side of the screen, then I can do a number of things to achieve this. In this example, you can see a red zone with a direction filter to show cars entering the garage. You can also see a green zone with a direction filter to show cars exiting the garage. One thing to note is that the direction filters have not been applied yet. Now the next thing to do is to create a new object counter by right-clicking on the tracking display window and selecting Counter and Add Counter. Let's call this counter a name. Let's call it Net Objects. And then the next thing to do is to apply an increment to the red zone, which has the direction filter for incoming vehicles, and then apply a decrement to the green zone, which has the direction filter for outgoing vehicles. And then the next thing to do is to click Apply. And as you will notice, every time a vehicle enters the garage, the counter will increase by 1, and every time one leaves the garage, the object counter will decrease by 1. In this example, the large aqua zone in the center is being used to measure the net number of objects in the center of the junction at any one time. To achieve this, it uses the presence filter and occupancy counter, which has been applied in both cases.